Everybody, welcome to Rumors versus Facts, the recruiting show at UGASports.com. But of course, during the season, we talk about football because football matters more than recruiting for 4 months out of the year. Than the rest of the time, we talk about recruiting and kind of other stuff. So we're going to leave it open-ended. Two major topics to discuss: the fallout from signing day, but the fact that the Georgia Bulldogs are your 2025 SEC champions after I don't say they backed their way into the game, but they didn't. Somebody else needed to lose for them to get in, just like last year. But they showed they're the best team in the SEC twice by winning the SEC. So, congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs. We can say that even as journalists, trying to be unbiased, we can congratulate someone on winning. And it was a dominant performance, Jed. I mean, I know I'll come across as a homer when I tweeted it out, but that was an ass kicking. I don't care who you are. Objectively, in all three phases of the game, Alabama got their asses handed to them because Georgia pushed them around. They ran over them. They beat them on special teams, defense, offense, coaching. And that was not the case back in September. That was a complete 180 when I felt that Georgia had some serious issues and played so tight. And they played tight like Alabama played tight like Ohio State did. If you notice that game, there's just I think it felt good for the Georgia fans for the shoe to be on the other foot for a change. It's like, no, we're going to go out and play our game. And that's kind of how Alabama's always approached Georgia, and they've won. And this time Georgia played its game, and stellar performance from the defense. Offense scores a touchdown every quarter. Could have scored more, gotten its way a few times. But let me get your thoughts, and I'll tell you my theory on what this means going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was telling Dash and Patrick at the game, it was weird seeing how, like, the game never really got out of reach because we all thought at halftime, like, okay, it's 14-0, good first half, but Alabama will come out and score, and then it's 14-7, and you don't know what's going from there. And they go 3 and out on their first 3 drives of the second half, and Georgia scores, I don't know if it was their first drive of the second half or second. And I mean, even the biggest threat Alabama had was they score on a drive, by the way, where I rewatched it yesterday. You get 30 yards on penalties, and then you have a fluky, like, Dalen Everett comes on a blitz and tips a pass, and the tight end like redirects and catches it and goes for 11, 12 yards. And that was that was kind of a lucky play. That ball could have gone anywhere. Dalen Everett could have tipped it up and intercepted it himself just as easy. Yeah. So, but anyway, you get that touchdown.
I thought it was going to be an INT. I'm like, interception. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And then, Georgia gets the first down, punts back. So, okay, Alabama's got it. It's a 2-score game. There's 9 minutes left. It feels like they've got a little momentum, but even then they're starting that drive on their own 5. And you're like, okay, it still doesn't really feel like this is a team that is going to be able to drive the ball 95 yards against this defense if Georgia doesn't make mistakes. And they didn't. They got the 4 and out. They punched in the touchdown, and the game was over. So, like you said, this game could have been even a bigger spread had it not been for season high in penalties, season high in penalty yards. It could have been even worse. But it was just a very in control game, really, from the time Georgia blocked that punt. I mean, that thing, because it was kind of 2 teams feeling each other out early, and then after that block punt, the floodgates opened, and Georgia really controlled it for the last, I guess, three quarters plus a few minutes.
I've seen a lot of the chatter because I'm on Twitter a lot. I basically am on Twitter half the time as a carnival barker saying, look, come join UGA Sports. Come be a part of it. Pay your $1, get a week free, see if you like it. Because I know if you try it at UGA Sports, you will do so. So I get a lot of pushback from it. Like right now, I'm getting all sorts of crap from the Notre Dame fans because I took shots at Notre Dame. Just the 2 sets of rules for Notre Dame and for everybody else. I don't like it. I'm not one of those people who says you have to conform to what everybody else does, but I don't like 2 sets of rules because, I'm mad at the rules about Ohio State. I've been hearing a lot from Ohio State fans when I said, look, Georgia was number 1 in 2023. They lost their conference game, dropped to 6. Ohio State loses their conference game. They dropped to 2. Different rules for different schools. That's how I say. But I'm seeing all the Alabama fans going, okay, that's your one. That's your one. Because, I tweeted out something about Alabama, and just our coverage of the game. You guys did a fantastic job covering it. Your coverage has been fantastic. And and every time I put up something about the Alabama, they come out, okay, you got lucky. You got lucky. But look how many we've won. I'm like, yeah, you have. And that was the way it was for Florida. Kirby had trouble with Florida to start. And I will say that game last night broke the mental hold that Alabama, I don't think they had it on the players, because the players were dying to get back to that game. I found out what practice was like this week. They wanted, I don't say revenge, but they wanted to show that first time was a fluke. They're not as into the streak as the media, the fans are. They believe that they could win. They believe they're the better team, and they showed it. This reminds me of I can't even remember the year. Basically, when Georgia, I guess this is 2002, when Georgia got to the SEC championship game under year 2 with Mark Richt, and they're playing Arkansas. And Arkansas is big, bad Arkansas at the time. I know people don't believe that anymore, but at the time they were a pretty serious team. Georgia gets in there, and it's like, we haven't been in this building in forever. And all of a sudden, they block a punt early on. The route is on. It's not even close after that. And I go back, I've said for years after that, I'm like, yeah, this is like that Arkansas SEC championship game, East versus West. That's when it was cemented that, this guy's, Mark Richt was serious, and this team, they started winning. And I kind of feel that's the way this one was. I feel that, it took Kirby Smart a couple tries to really get on a roll against Florida, because Florida's good. Florida had Georgia's number for years before he got here. And now he's won 5 in a row against Florida. Without Nick Saban there, I think that this Georgia team, and they may lose the next rematch, but you won't see 10 of 11 ever again as long as Kirby Smart's in Athens. It's a different era, and it's all you'll be able to retire that number 83 jersey, that Cole Spear jersey, because I think that it opened the floodgate. Just my take. It's my theory on the whole thing.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about different eras, Georgia held Alabama to -3 rushing yards, and we all knew, we knew coming into the game Alabama struggled to run the ball, and that's fine. You hear that, and then you watch that game, and there was just I think it was Dash or somebody. Every time Alabama run the ball, it was like it was doing Georgia a favor. I mean, that's how bad their run game was, and it's also not like sacks count as yardage, right? So you think, okay, if you get 9-10 sacks, that's going to subtract 50 yards or more off your rushing total. Georgia had 3 sacks, which is good, but it's not like there's
20 yards
negative. Yeah, they without the sacks, you're right. They had 15, 20 yards. So it's just an unbelievable performance by the defensive front. That's what I said last week was I think the biggest thing is this team is figuring out how to get pressure and get after the quarterback. And you saw it. I mean, even watching on replay, it was even more evident that the pressures, the hits, the sacks, obviously. I mean, it's they're figuring it out every week. And now, if you're looking forward, they've got 3 weeks to self-scout and say, okay, how can we take this pass rush to the next level? What can we do to counteract what we've shown, to build on what we've done so far? And I think that's a scary proposition for Ole Miss or Tulane in the Sugar Bowl. You look at the Fiesta Bowl.
Just say Ole Miss.
Ohio State. It could be Ole Miss. It could be with Ohio State. I mean, even since the Ole Miss game, right? I mean, think of how different. Think of how that defense felt watching the first 3 quarters of that game, and you're like, this team will never get a stop ever again. And think of how they're playing now. I mean, it's going to be a lot different for Ole Miss too. And then it's not like Ohio State. Ohio State's got great receivers, but so does Alabama, right? And Georgia did good things against it. I don't think there's a team out there that Georgia can't be. I don't know that Georgia wouldn't be favored against every team that they see so far. Maybe Ohio State, maybe Indiana. I mean, regardless, their spread would be a point and a half. I mean, I think this Georgia team is as good as anybody, is as battle tested as anybody, and has a great shot to win its next 3 games and win a national championship. Honestly, I think they've got a really good shot. And there was a lot of times not that long ago where we were both like, yeah, they might get into the playoff, but there's nothing going to come up. And I think that's a totally different feeling now with how they played these last 6 games, I guess.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking that, okay, they'll make the playoffs because it's a 12 team. And, after, and again, we talked about it. They were not lucky to beat Ole Miss because they scored every time they touched the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I said, you can't count on the offense being perfect. You're one drop pass away, one penalty. Remember Georgia's first 2 drives in this game against Alabama. They looked at a 3rd and 19 and a 3rd and 17, something like that. And did they convert them? No, they just tried to get some of it back so that they weren't punting into, giving the ball in the 50. Not a good situation. And you're right. They did have a season high in penalties, which is funny. The previous season high was Alabama, 63 yards. They had 80 yards of penalties on Saturday. Alabama's season low was the first meeting, 1 penalty, 15 yards. This past Saturday, they had 1 penalty for 5 yards. Their season low again. So I wrote that wouldn't repeat itself. I was completely wrong.
And it was like you had a pass interference, you had the personal foul on DeMelo Jones, you had the personal foul hands to the face on Dontrell Glover, which that's the one. It was 21-0, I believe, and that was a 3rd and 3 that was converted. So if that penalty is not called, maybe Georgia goes on and scores, and then Alabama doesn't even come back and score. You had
I think that DeMelo Jones one was on a 3rd down too, wasn't it?
Do what?
Wasn't that DeMelo Jones one on a 3rd down?
Yeah, the pass interference was. Yeah, and then the personal foul was a second and whatever, but it was a sack, so that would have been 3rd.
Oh, that's right. Because I remember the personal foul. Kirby loses his mind.
Yeah, I mean it's all these penalties, and they were deserved penalties. Like I'm not saying they got screwed, but if you cut those penalties in half, even that's a totally different game, and that's something that I'm sure is going to be harped on over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, just a dominating from start to finish. That is and the thing is, it's not like the offense set the world on fire either. I mean, credit to them. They ran the ball well enough. They ran for 140 whatever yards. That's pretty solid with a backup center, especially. They made plays when they needed to in the passing game, but it's not like they tore it up. And that's what goes to what you were saying earlier in the year. You needed the offense to be perfect, and this offense was far from perfect on Saturday. And Georgia still beat a really good team by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. So that's kind of the point I was making was the offense after the Ole Miss game, we're like, they can't be perfect. They will never again. That's your best performance of the year. Hell, it might be of his career. You can never assume that every time you get the ball, you're going to score. And that's exactly what they needed to beat Ole Miss. And looking at them right then, we're like, okay, they won. This offense can save the defense's ass. Usually, especially if they hit like this. As long as nobody gets hurt. Colby Young gets hurt. Then Drew Bobo goes down. Like, son of a. It's like you're losing people left and right, starters across the front. And so I'm thinking Georgia's going to they'll be in the 12-team playoff, but hell, I mean, they may not be hosting. There's too much danger coming. And sure enough, the defense got better. You talked about the last 6 games. They have looked a lot better. The last 4 games, they've given up 10 points, 3 points, 9 points, and 7 points. And I'm going to stand here and tell you I'm not a big believer in the defense because of how susceptible they were early in the year. But you told me they'd get better. We mentioned it last week. You were right then. And against this Alabama team that, again, had no running game, -3 yards and holding them to 1 touchdown. And I'm not calling it a fluke touchdown. They did drive 92 yards, but as you said, Georgia gave them 30 yards and a batted ball that just bounced the right way. Oh, and a ref. Somebody said, we kicked the ref's ass too. Now, they were throwing penalties, and at some point, I think KJ Bolden could have killed a ref and actually stopped the score. The guy got in the way, so they used him as like a moving screen. My point is, you were right. I was wrong. But the doubt is working. The more I doubt him, if you're superstitious, I'm going to keep doing that. Keep wearing your lucky underwear for Georgia's game against Ole Miss. I know Tulane could conceivably win that game, but I think they're like 14.5-point dog, 21-point dogs.
Something like that, yeah.
I get the nod to the G5, but it's not great. That's the overall picture. I want to call out some individuals who had one hell of a game, and I got to start at center with Malachi Tolliver. If you watch Catherine's post game or Lance's post game or Harrison's post game videos, any post game videos you see with number 51 in it, Malachi Tolliver, he's damn near in tears. Can you imagine the pressure that was on that guy this week? And you saw him when they were warming up. He was not the only one taking first string snaps.
Mm-hmm.
So he was on a super short leash. And I saw like one. He gave up like one pressure to the inside. Going up against Tim Keegan. That guy's, what do you think? I mean, definitely first, second round. I mean, I'm not going to say a slam dunk first rounder because you never know what's going to happen there. But he is an early draft pick. He is I've been calling him a Buick Skylark for the last 3 days because he just runs through the line. He's not Jordan Davis size, but he comes through there like an absolute bull. And that was that's kind of like the pressure that Gunnar Stockton was on last year facing Notre Dame in his first start. It's like, hey, you get the start in the playoffs. Malachi gets this big start against Alabama, Georgia's dreaded foe, for an SEC title, knowing that if they screw up, how far is Georgia going to drop in the polls, in the rankings? And I thought he played brilliantly.
Yeah, and it was the second or third play. He gets beat on a block, and Nate Frazier is dropped for loss. And you're like, oh boy, like that kid.
It's going to be a long night.
And then the rest of the game, you didn't really notice him. And I think for a guy, a backup making his first career start, a redshirt freshman, in those circumstances, you take that, right? Like I'm sure that there's plays he missed, there's blocks he missed. There nobody's going to play a perfect game, but to get just solid play with the situation he was in, but also with the guys around you, is huge, and that's what this team needs. And I think you look forward. I mean, Alabama might be the best defensive front he'll see, right? I mean, depending on how the playoffs check out, maybe Ohio State.
There's not another Tim Keegan out there.
So you start off with as big of a test as you're going to get. And like we said with Gunnar last year, now he was thrown into the fire. He got through the past week. Now he's got 2 or 3 weeks to continue practicing as the number one center, being coached by Drew Bobo, I'm sure, who I'm sure did a great job over the past week or so. And just knowing you're that guy and being more focused in practice. Because and I don't know this about Tolliver, but like it's got to be hard, right? Where you're like, okay, like, yeah, I can prepare as if I'm one play away, but I'm not playing this game unless somebody gets hurt. Now like you're in. Like it is your show. You're in if you're that guy, and that's huge. So a great performance. You give just steady, like even the snaps. Like I know against Tech, it seemed like he had some snaps that were all over the place. There weren't any snappage. I did notice it seemed like to me there was a lot more plays from under center than in the shotgun.
They doubled the amount under center.
I don't know if that's coincidence. I don't know if that was on purpose. Something they had from Alabama, but I mean, maybe it works. It certainly worked the other night.
Easier on him, and Georgia.
Yeah, it's one less thing he's got to worry about. So if you're over the ball thinking, okay, I've got to make sure this snap is perfect, because once you have one, I would imagine, once you have one bad snap, it's in your head the rest of the night, right? You're like, oh God, yeah, how did I mess that one up? So every little thing you can take off of his play, especially when you're a center and you've got so much on your plate already. It's huge credit to the staff for figuring out a way to make life a little bit easier on 51.
Yeah. I also want to give a quick shout out to Rod Robinson. I wish I'd known that was coming, and you could do one of those prop bets in Vegas, for the first person to score. Got to think that the odds on him were like 50,000 to 1. They probably wouldn't have listed it. He probably would not have been listed on the odds sheet.
Yeah, and it's his first touchdown since Ball State of 2023. And you think of,
oh God,
how much has like how long ago that was. That was Carson Beck's second start. Georgia was still two-time defending champions. I mean, he was. I guess he would have been a true freshman. I guess, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and he's had injuries. He's had other guys come in, and it has not his Georgia career since that moment has not gone the
No.
way he would have wanted to or would have thought. And to see him get a play, I mean, it's him, it's Cole Spear, it's Rashawn Dinkins, who I'm sure we're going to talk about. It's Malachi Tolliver, like all these guys who Zayden Walker had a sack the other night and a pressure, like all these guys who are just stepping up in these big moments. And that's the depth, that's program culture, that's whatever you want to however you want to spin it. Those are guys that are bought in. I mean, Rod Robinson could have transferred after last year, right? He could have been like, you know what, I'm out. Or like when Georgia brings in Josh McCray. I can't remember which portal period they brought him in, but like, yeah, you know what, they're bringing in another 230-pound guy. I'm out of here. I'm gonna go transfer to UCLA, be close to home, whatever. And he's stuck around, and he got his moment in the biggest game. Put him on the board first.
Brilliant play call. That was a great play design. Mike Bobo called a fantastic game for the most part. There's a couple that there's always a couple. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, Mike? I do that every time, but then I don't know what they see. And here's the thing: I don't even know that that's what Mike called because Gunner could have changed it. So who the hell am I to know? But that was a brilliant play design that I just absolutely loved, and glad to see him get it. Rolling out that way. Of course, I almost felt that Georgia. I don't say Georgia played this game with its hand tied behind his back because Alabama was missing a lot of guys too. But the one guy we didn't realize was going to be out was Noah Thomas. So if you told me they had to run into this game without Colby Young, Noah Thomas, Kyron Jones, Drew Bobo, I'm like, the Dogs are going to get pounded.
And Janelle Aguero's got like a wrist thing apparently, or whatever. And because Rashawn Dinkins goes out there and we're like, what? Like, is Janelle Aguero like doing like a Nick Chubb? Like, is he honoring Nick Chubb for some reason? Like, it was not something that any of us really saw coming. And not only that, he played the entire game. I mean, he subbed out for DeMelo Jones, but DeMelo Jones slid in there on third downs. But that was Rashawn Dinkins' job, and he did a great job as a freshman, first start and first time really getting extensive playing time in a game like that. He's played mop-up duty. I remember it was Mississippi State maybe where Aguero like lost his helmet and Dinkins came in for a couple plays, something like that. But
yeah,
it's like Tolliver. It's like, hey, here's the biggest game of the year against the evil empire. Go get him. And he did a great job. And he might have been a guy kind of like Glover that might not have even gotten on campus until
he was midsummer guy.
So that's another one where you're like, just think where he could have been if he had been able to enroll early. Like if he's done this, if he's come this far in 5 months, 6 months, whatever. Very, very impressive, especially at DB where the head coach's eyes are going to be focused on you most of the time at practice.
Well, we heard about Rashawn Dinkins the same way we heard about Dontrell Glover as mid-year guys who are absolutely tearing it up. But we didn't see him like we saw Dontrell Glover. And shout out to him and Juan Gasson him and Elijah Griffin for making the on-3 freshman All-American squad. I get why they didn't put Juan Gaston on there because Juan doesn't start as much, but he's absolutely a beast and as a first-round draft pick if ever there was one. But Rashawn Dinkins coming in was big, and not having Noah Thomas to throw to, they went to Dylan Bell. And again, we can talk about the new guys, and I want to touch real quick about some of just the sheer number of, like I said, guys who were thrown into the crucible in the biggest game of the year and came out the other side. But when you needed some plays, go to 86.
Yeah, go to Dylan Bell. He's that guy that just shows up, and he had a couple runs in this game. He had
4,
and that's what, like, you go back to that Georgia Tech game, and you're like, man, some of these these fade balls, sideline balls at Dylan Bell, like they're really close and they're just not connecting. And then he gets that touchdown in the back of the end zone. He had, I mean, that's that's the guy who has never really been like the number one guy necessarily, and has never been that guy that gets all the headlines. And but then he just somehow shows up and makes all the plays when you need him to, and that's huge. He's it feels like he just got here, and I can't believe he's a senior. But he has played in these games. He's played in so many of these big games. He's played in, I guess, 4 SEC championship games, or at least 3. I don't know if he played his freshman year or not, but he knows. I mean, he said the other day, like after the game, that touchdown, he's like, "Yeah, we studied it all week in practice, and I knew, if I came off the ball, all I had to do was cross the safety's face, and it was a touchdown." Like that's the type of veteran football IQ stuff that if you get a freshman out there and he panics or he hesitates a little bit. I mean, that throw was right in the middle of his zone.
It was beautiful.
The guy that hesitates, that's an incompletion. That's a deflection out of the end zone. Gunner could tuck it and take a sack, whatever. And that's Dylan Belfoy. He's a gritty guy who just always shows up when you need him.
Yeah, he had a catch earlier too where he went and sat down at a hole in the zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just
before that touchdown.
Yeah, it's like he goes out, fakes to the inside, goes and just sits there, and I'm like, and I start mentally, I'm like making the lines of who's got each area. I'm like, in the rule of thirds, that dude is right on the apex of 2 cross lines. And I'm like, he's got it split top to bottom and right to left. And of course, you don't know where the ball's going to be. I mean, the ball's lined up in a different spot, but he knew exactly where that would be on the field and went and sat there. And I'm like, after this game's over, Gunner Stockton's going to have to buy you a beer, buddy, because you saved his ass right there. And then Gunner threads it through like 3 people. So shout out to Gunner Stockton had a good game, 3 touchdowns. Well, I think it's 77% completions, 20 of 26.
And was back to, I think the biggest thing was, I don't know of any throws off the top of my head where you were like, man, that was close to being picked. And I think that's what we've seen.
That's a good point.
Couple, like the Tech interception was forced. The Charlotte one was forced. And I think he almost, like, there was, especially the first quarter of that game from our view in the press box, we're kind of in the end zone. So we've got a little bit of an angle to see things open up. And there were times where it's like, man, it really looks like that guy's open in the zone. And he's not pulling the trigger. He's not seeing it, whatever. But as the game went on, I mean, again, that like you said, that Bell catch went for like 20 yards down to the 4. That was a great one. The touchdown was a great one. They sprung the patented fake a screen and hit somebody on a wheel route down the sideline play to I think it was Lucky. So he definitely got settled in more as the game went on. And I think that's something we're going to see. I would expect Georgia to work on and hit hard, because I think teams are going to keep trying to play zone against this offense in the playoff, I would guess. And it's going to be, I think they're going to put in some counters to that and get Gunner more comfortable going against some of those zone looks over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We would be remiss not to mention how well you mentioned earlier how they got after the quarterback. I also thought this was one of Georgia's best tackling efforts of the year.
Against everybody but Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams doesn't count.
You stole my caveat before I could get there. There's something about Ryan Williams. And again, he beat them last year when they should have tackled him, and he just kind of bounced off everybody. Of course, he did drop one in the end zone, so karma comes back to get you. But everybody else, they dropped pretty quick. And the Bulldogs were the more physical team. Now, there were a couple shots on Nate Frazier that, that dude had to be one giant bruise head to toe. They teed off him. So I'm not saying Alabama did not hit. They hit like some sons of bitches. They were strong. It's Alabama. But Georgia met that physicality. And when you see Gabe Harris, C.J. Allen, Ryan Wilson, Sean Dinkins, those boys were hitting and tackling. And I'm with you every time. I do not understand what Kalen DeBoer was trying to do. I'm not an X's and O's guy enough to understand why he was trying to force the run with his 3rd string, 4th string running backs. I get it. Show that you can run it. it makes it so that they can't just tee off on you, and it helps with your pass protection. I get the gist of it, but it was so ineffective. And Georgia was dropping them where there were not so many yards after contact. And Kirby Smart, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever he had to do that Zoom, they're like, does it help you that you played these guys before? And he's like, y'all are making this way too complicated. It's going to come down to who tackles and who blocks. And I'm like, Kirby, don't give us that coach speak answer. Tell us what you're learning, going back and looking at the film, how you're going to adjust. And he was right. I always think sometimes he's giving us coach speak, but that was not. It came down to who blocked and who tackled. And Georgia was getting push up on the front. They were getting there. I mean, remember how much we heard about Caden Proctor after that first game?
Mm-hmm.
People got by him.
Yeah, it was interior guys, it was edge guys, it was guys coming on blitzes. And we saw Corey Thomas come up with a sack. I think it was the first series of the third quarter was when he got his. It was a group effort, and I think that goes back to how this pass rush has evolved. I mean, Kirby said it a couple of weeks ago. This team does not have that one dominant beat you off the snap pass rusher. It's more about rushing as a unit. It's more about the twists and stunts and well-timed blitzes and all that stuff. And I think that the players are getting more comfortable with it, and the staff is getting more comfortable at continuing to figure things out and build on it week by week by week. Because I mean, it was night and day. We all remember what Alabama's offense looked like that first meeting, in the sense of Ty Simpson had all day to throw. And I was looking back at the box score this week, and I saw Georgia had a sack, and I was like, really? They had a sack? And then somebody told me, like, yeah, well, it was a sack, but they sacked like a receiver trying for a double pass or something. So like technically they didn't sack Ty Simpson. So, but the other day, and then Ty Simpson was off. Is that because he was just off? Did he have the pass rush in his mind? It had to have helped a little, just to be getting in his face, to the pressures. Like Zayden Walker had one where he comes around on a stunt, maybe, I don't remember, but forces a bad throw. I mean, that stuff builds, and it's huge. 3 sacks it was stuff you would only have dreamed of with this defense 3 months ago, because they just had nothing going rushing the passer. Now it's a lot better than what it was back then, for sure.
And that was one of the advantages playing on the first time, helped the second time. I was talking, it was at breakfast this morning with Coach Donnan, and we were kind of reviewing the game, and he'll talk about it tomorrow. I'll get it, but I'm gonna have him explain to people what it's like, understanding their cadence a little bit better, and how that helped the timing on the sacks. And I'm like, wow, if there's ever a case study about what playing someone the first time and playing them the second time does for you. And of course, it shows your foibles. They learn from playing you. So the reason I'll bring this up is, we will likely 99% likely see Ole Miss in New Orleans, on January 1st, having to play them again. Now, they won't have Lane Kiffin there, but still very dangerous team with a chip on its shoulder. Want to prove that they're still, I mean, that's going to be there's only way to say it is that's going to be a dangerous squad. So the Bulldogs will be able to take a lot from that, as will Ole Miss. So I'm not going to be worried about too much about it. Kirby looked ecstatic after the game was over. I think that this was I won't say Achilles heel, but it felt like this whole series was something that was weighing him down, because it's just frustrating to be that successful. 2 titles, SEC titles. I mean, this is his 4th, and he how much he wanted to play in this game. It's a big game for him, but he was not oblivious to his record against Alabama, and he looked like a man who had finally gotten to the top of the hill. I use the phrase in my column that Georgia was Sisyphus. Pushing the rock up the hill. When you get it right to the very top, it rolls back down. You have to start all over again. And that's it just seemed like he finally got the rock over the hill and dancing around, going crazy in the locker room. There's a lot of good clips on our Facebook page and our TikTok channel of Kirby Smart just going wild in the locker room. And that's a man who, again, he's very happy to celebrate an SEC title. He knows it's a big deal, but it's also his fourth one. But I think it was special that this one was over Alabama, his nemesis.
Yeah, and I think even if Georgia had lost the other night, they would have still made the playoff. They'd have probably been the 5 or 6 seed, and they would be the ones playing Tulane or James Madison, and they would still have a pretty decent shot at a national championship. But then there would still have been something missing, I think, for a lot of Georgia fans, and I think that's what made 2021 that much more special. Is not only did you win the first national championship in 41 years, but you did it by A, avenging a loss, but B, beating Alabama, a team that had stumped you and had denied you 2 national championships already in the Smart era. So I think that, and like you look at go back to Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan last year. Like I have Ohio State.
You do have a lot of friends up there
who are family members who were like, yeah, we won a national title, but there's something about losing to Michigan, and it just doesn't. You can't fully accept it when you know that you did. And then in 21, Georgia had that for a little bit until they avenged the loss in the championship game. So it means a lot. It's different than if Georgia had beaten Texas A&M, if Georgia had beaten I don't know, LSU, whoever in this game, because there's so much history there. There's so much lore for Kirby Smart, for the fans, for the players to a certain extent. And that's why it felt like a tidal wave of emotion that was kind of carrying Georgia, especially down the stretch there in that game. Because that game was pretty much over with 7 minutes left. You could just feel the relief and the joy kind of flooding out of the Georgia side of the stadium over those last few minutes.
Very true. Last thing we'll touch on the game. We mentioned, Gunnar Stockton has matured. The great play from Ernest Green on that right side, Monroe Freeling on the left, Lawson Lucky and Oscar Delp on a duo wrap with London Humphreys. The X coming all the way over with a kick-out block that scores Nate Frazier. I woke up I tweeted about it this morning. I'm still thinking about that block. But also got to give the upperclassmen did well. But there's a possibility that they return a lot of guys on this offense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say it's a certainty because there is such a thing as a transfer portal, and they're going to get offers to transfer. Georgia's will fight like hell to keep them, but they'll also return a lot of guys on that defense. I guess what you lose Christian Miller off the defensive front, but maybe Xavier McLeod. I don't know. He might come back. Anyway, you lose Dalen Everett, but I like Ellis Robinson and Melo Jones and Rashawn Dinkins, and Todd Robinson, KJ Bolden's back. Anyway, Gabe Harris, Quatavius Johnson. You lose your inside linebackers, but you got Chris Cole coming, Justin Williams. Chris Jones can do both. Zayden Walker, as you mentioned. Zayden is so lightning fast. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Watching him stalk down Ty Simpson was something, a beauty. And he didn't get the horse collar tackle, which,
He thought about it, but yeah.
That's
like if you spin it forward to next year, it's and like there's a chance that you might not lose CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson. I think you've got a chance that maybe Raylan Wilson comes back. I think CJ Allen's probably gone, but even if you don't, like you said,
I will help CJ pack. He's had a hell of a year. Dude, go get paid.
Allen. You got Cole, you got Williams, you got Walker, you've got Nick Abrams who you signed this year, AJ Krua. So you've got talent there. And then it's how does star and safety shake out? Does Rashawn Dinkins end up at safety next year? Is he that guy that fills that role? Does he take over at star? And Aguero plays safety? Is it somebody else? Do you get a transfer? But your corners, your top 2 corners anyway, look like they're pretty much set right now. As long as both of them are back, KJ Bolden should be back, and the defensive line and the edge guys will be more experienced, I think, than they are this year, obviously. And then you lose Kristen Miller, maybe McLeod, but you've got a lot of guys who've gotten a lot of experience this year, and you're bringing in a lot of guys in the freshman class. And I think defensive line is a spot where you can bring in a transfer and like it's hard to bring in a transfer offensive lineman because offensive linemen want to go somewhere and start. But I think it's easier to bring in a transfer defensive lineman with what Georgia has shown that they rotate so many guys.
Yeah.
You could bring in a guy. I mean, that's what Xavier McLeod did. He came in as a depth rotational piece that that plays a whole lot. So yeah, there's a lot
81 jumping to their knocking down passes.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of guys set to come back, and then you pair it with the like at least defensively, I don't think there's any spot where Georgia's like, oh my God, we've got to go get a portal guy here. Like maybe the other safety spot if you don't
still need a couple
else. But other than that, I mean, maybe if the right edge guy comes available, like I don't think there's a lot of glaring holes, at least at this point. Where now, granted, last year we were all saying, man, Georgia's going to have Damon Wilson coming back at edge next year. They're going to be awesome. So like, you never know, but there's a lot of potential for this team to be really good again next year.
Yeah, especially on the offensive side. We talked about that last week. How you have so many guys on the offense come back. You're basically losing one offensive lineman. Now, Monroe Freeling and Green could both go, but you still got a bunch of good options there. So
like that's the one spot like we're all going to be waiting when the season ends because there's like we've said a few times, there's a world where you bring Green, Freeling, and Bobo come back, or there's a world where they all leave. And Michael Morris is definitely gone, so you're going to have to replace him. But how many of those come back? Do they all come back? Do they all leave? How does that shake out is going to be very, very, very huge because there's a chance the offensive line looks a lot different, or there's a chance you bring those guys back and you put, you could have Gaston and Glover as your guards and Green at tackle, and you roll from there, and you're good to go when spring starts. So
and maybe Lawson Lucky comes back.
Yeah.
And then you have Elias Williams, Ethan Barbour, Jaden Riddell. You're going 14 personnel. Double tight ends on each side. It looks like a goal line, but you're on 1st and 10 on your own 25, running 14 personnel. I'll just be hilarious. I'd love it. Let's shift gears real quick and talk a little bit signing day. The Bulldogs lost 2 players right at the end, but they gained 3. Before we get to the guys that they lost, why don't we talk about some of the guys that they added at the last minute? I say last minute.
Yeah, they got Tyreek Jemison from Paulding County, an offensive lineman who we kind of had been trending toward Georgia for a while. 6'5", 320. Could be a guard, could be a tackle. I think they'll try him at tackle first because that's what they really needed in this class. They got Terrence Pinnock, a linebacker from South Gwinnett, who had visited earlier in the year and he was a Coastal Carolina commit, so it was kind of peripherally on the radar. And then he pops up with an offer on Sunday, and it was pretty much a done deal after that. And then the big one was Blake Stewart, the safety, who, like you said, Georgia needs some safeties, and they got a pure back-end safety in Blake Stewart out of Woodward Academy. He was committed to Clemson. He backed off of that, and it was even when he decommitted, the vibes kind of were, this looks like Miami's race to lose, with Georgia made up a lot of ground fast, got him on campus for, I believe, the Texas game, OV for the Charlotte game, and got his commitment on signing day. So 3 huge additions at least definitely with Jemison and Stewart at 2 positions where they really needed one more guy in this class.
Yeah, and if you go back and watch even Terrence Pinnock, a lot of people are like, well, he's only a 3-star. I'm like, yeah, watch his
film rocks. His film is fantastic. And then South Gwinnett is pretty.
Give me a South Gwinnett kid.
That is big boy football as well. His film, he is just destroying people. And I think him and Abrams are your like traditional linebackers, and then you've got Elijah Littlejohn as more of your Chris Cole, your Jalen Walker, your hybrid guy. So great linebacker class, which like you can just go ahead and pencil in for 2027. Georgia's going to have a great linebacker class, and Todd Harley's going to have a great tight end class, and then you go from there. So
how the hell do you sign 3 of the top 20 tight ends in the entire nation?
3 of the top 10. It's ridiculous. And it's not like you luck into having 3 guys who, like, a kid from Athens, a kid from Winder, and a kid from Gainesville, who, like, all 3 of them grew up wanting to be Georgia fans. Like, Caden Prothro is an in-state kid, but then you went and go get a kid from Ohio and a kid from Michigan to join your program. I mean, Lincoln Keys was been committed for over a year and never really wavered off that pledge. I mean, that's
that dude can catch. My God, can he
Todd,
catch?
the Todd Hartley recruiting train is it never stops, and it's just ridiculous to watch year after year.
I'm excited about. I'm just kind of scrolling through it. I'm really excited to see Jay Lamar. We've seen him run, just kind of crush people. Tariq Green, another safety at Buford. Georgia signed some Buford boys. That Buford curse is gone. Georgia was after him for 7,000 years.
Yeah.
A couple guys from IMG Academy, Zach Fort. Again, another safety. I'm big on the safeties. That's what Georgia needed. They fought like hell to get Kamari Brooks, a local guy, but hey, sometimes local guys work out. So big one there. The jewel of the class, some people say Caden Prothro, the tight end, but Ikine Ogboko. We saw his brother earlier. That guy's serious, but Ikine is a monster. 6'6", 310. Looks good on the hoof. The Rivals has him ranked as a 5-star offensive tackle. Pretty nasty. And Justice Fitzpatrick, the cornerback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
I don't think people realize how big a deal getting him is.
Like, I think that secondary class is the jewel, because I mean, Blake Stewart, I think, is pretty underrated as a 3-star for starters. But then Fitzpatrick.
Hey, look, the last time Georgia stole a guy at the last minute from Clemson, Dalen Everett.
Yeah,
what, 3-year starter.
Yeah, and Justice Fitzpatrick's a stud. Caden Harris is a stud. Tyreek Green, I think, is a perfect fit at star. Zach Ford, I went and saw him play when they played Central, and he, like, first series of the game, Central has a 4th and 1, and Zach Ford comes in and just sticks a guy in the middle of the hole and drives him back like 3 yards. Like, that kid will hit you. And Jordan Smith from Houston County is really good. Could be.
Dude, I didn't even mention him.
Yeah. I think he could be a corner or a safety. Like, that's what I'm interested to see, because I think the only certainties we know for sure, I think Caden Harris is definitely a corner, and I think Blake Stewart is definitely a safety. But these other guys, I think safety, star, corner, like, I think there's some versatility there between them, and we're that's what spring. God, I'm sure all these guys probably are early enrolling, because that's what kids do nowadays. That's what spring practice is for, is to figure out where those guys fit in. Because, like Kirby always has been saying, this is just how it is now. These teams are going to be really young, and they're going to need these guys to be ready to play next year. Because, like, Ja'Cory Thomas is gone, I think. Kyron Jones.
Let me interrupt real quick. Shout out to Ja'Cory Thomas for leading the team in tackles Saturday.
Yeah, great game.
I have dogged him all year, and when you needed him the most, the dude was everywhere. Again, not missing tackles.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't mean to.
They showed, rewatching the game, they highlighted a play where Alabama had Jeremy Bernard lined up in the backfield, and he ran like an angle route out of the backfield, and Ja'Cory Thomas comes up and tackles him right there. And that's like, if you're Alabama, that's what you want. You want Jeremy Bernard one-on-one with the weaker coverage guy of Georgia's 2 safeties, and he answered that challenge. That might have been a 3rd down. I don't remember, but he played a phenomenal game when Georgia
did. And hey, it's kind of like who was it? Chris, what's his name? In Georgia's championship game, 2021. And I can't think of safety. His name was Chris something. He popped up.
Chris Smith.
Chris Smith. A guy who you didn't give enough credit to. I didn't give enough credit to, and then matured into a great role and helps win you a game. So shout out Chris Smith and Ja'Cory Thomas. The only guy that to me I think is an absolute slam dunk in that secondary hasn't signed yet. Chase Calicut.
Yeah, he's got the legal stuff going on. He had it's aggravated.
That's just a freak athlete, man.
Yeah, and we saw him at the 5-star thing, and he's 6'3", 6'4", and he's playing corner. Georgia wanted him as a corner. So it's he told us he was going to sign. I think he talked to some Georgia sources, and they're more like, we got to see how things work out. So I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I mean, he could maybe sign in February because I mean, there's not a rule, right? That Georgia's got to
Right.
put out a big tweet and a graphic that this kid signed. So maybe he signs in the spring and then poof, he's on the roster in the fall. I don't know how that's going to work. I know he is a really, really, really talented player. I think he would benefit from getting away from home, from kind of what I understand, and
Yeah.
maybe Georgia gives him a second chance, or maybe they decide it's not worth it and they move on. I think it kind of seems like right now they're at least wanting to try to bring him in, but it's a very, as the kids say, it's fluid. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of legal system stuff going on. But yeah, that's if it does work out and he does end up here, I think from a pure football perspective, he's a big time addition for sure.
Yeah. I remember watching him line up to run, and everyone's trying to win the fastest guy. So we have like a 40-yard dash competition, and everybody's jumping early, and we had to restart it like 3 times. He actually, some guys jumped, he waited a second and then ran them down. And he's some of the fastest guys in the nation. I'm like, sucker can fly. So who knows? Georgia also lost 2 players. So
Yeah, they lost Brady Marchese to Michigan, who he'd considered flipping to Michigan this summer, and then Georgia, they got him to shut down his recruitment actually, and then he didn't sign on Wednesday. And Wednesday night we were told, yeah, it's all good, nothing to worry about. And then by Thursday morning it was like, yeah, he's signing with Michigan. So that was Lance and did a good job of kind of hearing it was some maybe NIL contract stuff and that kind of thing. And I don't know exactly. There's a lot of moving parts can be with those things, but I think he's a really good player. I went and saw him play a couple weeks ago, and he's really fast for one, but he is a guy who will is dying to block somebody. Like he loves blocking, and that's something that will get you on the field quick at Georgia for sure. So Michigan got to go in, credit to Michigan for making it happen at the end. And then Jared Curtis, obviously, we all know what happened there. Vanderbilt stayed with it, and I probably in this show last week we were still kind of like we don't really know. We were still kind of up in the air. And then he officially flipped on Tuesday afternoon, right before I was going to drive to Nashville to go to a signing. So credit to him.
15 minutes, brother.
Yeah, like I was.
Tell people what was going on.
So I was going to. So the plan was to go to Nashville Tuesday night, go to a signing Wednesday morning, and then we'll play it by ear from there. I might go to his game Thursday, whatever. Me and my fiance went to go get a Christmas tree Tuesday morning, and I was like, okay, go get the tree, come back, put it inside, and I'll go. And we literally were pulling back into the apartment complex, and Rivals puts out the story that Daddy flipped, and she was like, does this mean you don't have to go to Nashville anymore? And I was like, I think it does. So
damn straight.
So that was fortuitous timing for me. But
well, then he came out and started denying it.
Remember, yeah, and then he denied it, but then I think it's very, as if you read the tea leaves on how all this all went down, I think it was whether he talked to this for one way or another, it got out before he wanted to, I think is what happened. And that's, I don't know if that's a miscommunication. I don't know if that's somebody running with something they weren't supposed to. I don't know, but I think that is, it got out before he wanted it to, and that sucks. I mean, that's a kid's moment. That's his big moment to be the hometown hero, and it got out before he wanted to, and that sucks for him. But I think once that first came out, and it was kind of starting to feel like Vanderbilt anyway. Like it just kind of had that feel to it. So,
well, I remember you and me, it was weeks prior to this. People's like, is there something there? Is there smoke to it? And a lot of people said, oh, well, that's just On3 putting out clickbait. That's just Rivals putting out clickbait. That they just want to, I'm like, no. The Steve Wiltfongs of the world, the Tom Loys of the world, Adam Gorney, Sam Spiegelman, Chad Simmons of the world they don't get paid for clicks. They don't get bonuses for stuff like that. The only thing that matters to them It's being right, having the news. They talk to people in the industry. They talk to directors of player personnel. There was something there. So they said, hey, it's a possibility. The kid comes out and says, yeah, I'm sticking with Georgia. Okay. But you keep visiting. It is your hometown. You've got Theo Vaughn and some comedian and all these guys talking about you. Okay. You say there's nothing to worry about, but that's not what we're hearing. So, and then the kids stopped saying there's nothing to worry about. Now, you noticed at the minute he says, we report the news, everybody reports the news, he's flipped. He's like, I don't know where this is coming from. I haven't talked to anybody. I'm like, bullshit, dude. You have talked to people. You may not have told these guys, but you told the others where you were going, and everybody found out about it and they ran with the story. But for weeks leading up to this, you could have put all this to rest, just like any of the other guys, and come out and said, I'm 100% locked in. Because he immediately tweeted when he thought things were going against him. I don't know where this news is coming from. You could have tweeted that out. Hey, I'm sticking with Georgia weeks and weeks and weeks ago. That's why no one gave up the story, because we knew there was something to it and you didn't refute it. So don't act like, you're all hurt and sad. And again, I don't want anyone to lose their moment. Don't get me wrong. But once it's been done, it was like Georgia. There were a couple people that came out and reported that she was Terrence Pinnock had committed to Georgia. Now, we knew he had not done so publicly, so we had a story ready and we didn't run it. Other people had said, hey, he's committed him. And I'm like, dude, don't ruin the kid's moment. And then Georgia, of all places, puts out that he's signed. I'm like, damn it, guys, come on.
And that's what they did they did the same thing with Blake Stewart, because he was supposed to commit at 3:30. And like 2:15, they put it out, and we're like, oh, okay. I kind of thought this was a commitment and signing all at once deal. Maybe not. And then they deleted it, and it's like, oh, like the social media team got a little trigger happy there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of looked like it was trending to Vanderbilt, and that's how it turned out. And credit to Vanderbilt. I mean, I do truly believe that, like, yeah, Vanderbilt, I'm sure promised him a lot in NIL, but I do think this is not purely, but mainly you can play early. You can play from day one. And you can say, oh, I want to go in there and work for the job and this and this. And that's the right thing to say. But I mean, we all know he's going to get the first crack at the starting job as of now. Now, we thought that with Julian Lewis last year going to Colorado. Yeah. And then Colorado brings in a transfer. So that's the thing, is like, you wonder if Vanderbilt, to keep your momentum as a program going, if you want to bring in, especially if there's a guy out there who has got 1 year of eligibility left, you bring him in and try to keep the momentum going. Then you hand the keys to Curtis in 27. But for now, it looks like
same thing would have happened to Georgia. He could have come and,
exactly.
I'm with you there. I will say, for his standpoint, if he has, it's like with Georgia and their freshmen this year, the Dontrell Glovers, the Juan Gastons, the Elijah Griffins, Ellis Robinson played more this year, DeMello Jones, the Rashawn Dinkins. You're gonna have your DeMello Jones moment, like he did on that, stupid personal foul. And Kirby's more mad about the personal foul than he was the pass interference, because pass interference, if he doesn't, that's probably a touchdown. It's like, okay, that's fine. You have your stupid dude. We talked about Ellis Robinson weekly pass interference call every week, just guaranteed to come. We talked about how the development of Gunnar Stockton. Those first 2 weeks, people are like, this guy can't even throw down the field, but look at him now. So if you are a Jared Curtis and you go and you have a rough freshman year, but your sophomore year is going to be great, your junior year is even better. So I guess he sees it as, I can go into 3 years of development straight to the NFL versus go sit a year, have my break-in year, then have my elite year. It's like, okay, I get it. So it's just I'm not gonna beat this thing to death. Good luck to him. Um, people compared him to Dylan Raiola. He's a lot better than Dylan Raiola, folks. But if this is this will help Georgia keep Ryan Puglisi, maybe keep Ryan Montgomery. Those are really good quarterbacks, and the Dogs will be looking for one in the portal, maybe two. If you lose one, you got to have four. That's the thing. And it's tough to go get somebody. Remember, Georgia was looking at the kid from, I think it was Coastal Carolina. They were, and they looked at the guy that went to Indiana. They wanted Mendoza. They looked at Jackson Arnold. They had an offer on the table. It's tough to get a good quarterback to come here because you can't guarantee them that they're going to start. But why do they leave where they're playing now if they are the starter? So anyway, all right, let's wrap up the show here. We've hit an hour. Any last thoughts?
I mean, I think Georgia's playoff path, could set up pretty well. I think I would rather rematch with Ole Miss than play Texas A&M in the first round. So I think you worked out good there. And then that would set up a Titanic showdown with Ohio State, which Ohio State's really good, but they also, if you look at their schedule, I mean, your best wins are Texas, who's solid, but not, that win doesn't look as good as it did at the time. And Michigan, who is offensively challenged, at least if nothing else. So I think Georgia could beat Ohio State. And then you look at what you worry about, like if you really want to play the long game with the Georgia Alabama stuff, is Alabama like they beat Oklahoma and then they beat Indiana because they've got an advantage in the trenches, and then they upset Texas Tech, and then you get a Georgia Alabama rematch in the national championship game. Like that would be the Titanic, whatever. But
here comes Cole Spear.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think Georgia's just pass sets up well. I think they're playing as well as anybody in the country.
Yeah,
maybe besides Indiana, and I think they've got a pretty good shot to lift the trophy at the end of this thing. So we'll see.
I agree. All right, folks. We'll see y'all next week. Y'all take care.